Surprise, it's me. It's Carrier Update, brought to you by Powerfleet. I'm Mike Vincent. He's Zach Strickland. What's going on, my friend?
Oh man, good to have you over here, Mike. So we've got our tender rejection index, which continues to fall. We're down below 12%, 11.46%. Now, I wanted to draw some lines here to put this into perspective. I think we're all kind of clear that the market is in a significant period of transition at this point. But I wanted to illustrate that transition because over the course of the past year, tender rejection rates have been kind of on a regular, linear regression.
Absolutely.
That's what this line is right here. You know, we talked about it a few times. There have been a few changes over the course of
So you've got a full year on this map.
Full year. So we've got actually beyond a full year because we go all the way back to the beginning of 2021.
Okay, good.
And the Texas freeze. So since about that late February, early March period of time, where everything kind of seemed to go wrong all at once for the shipping community. It's been on this slow regression, and it's been. And this is what you would expect when you're talking about capacity, efficiency gains, things like that happen gradually and really more healthy. It's healthy for things to move at this type of rate. It's going up and down. These are the ways that things kind of you get. Capacity changes, the market and individuals can adjust. They have time to adjust.
Normalized cycles, we're all built on the normalized cycle. So as the market, it's that volatility that.
This right here is what's unhealthy.
That's volatile.
Yes. This right here, the thing that happened back there at the end of February, both of those periods are considered relatively unhealthy. Now, they're good for certain people. I'm not saying that everybody loses.
It depends on your perspective whether it's good or bad, right?
Exactly. But this one right here specifically is bad for the carrier community because now they are left with a network that cannot simply adapt overnight.
No.
If you don't have the freight demand that was there before, now you're left holding, the candle at one end and you don't have a way to get it out.
Well, you had over here, you had a shipper industry that did not have capacity to handle the demand that they had for it, and now you've got the exact opposite, but the same thing.
Right. Right. And this right here is not great for the shipping community either, because what this will do, if this continues at this pace, is it means that the pendulum has that much more momentum to swing back the other direction.
Yeah.
What happened in the early part of COVID was being set up in 2019. What happened, what's happening right now was set up in 2021. This is not, these are things that have been, artificially almost overheated and overcooled.
Yeah.
And we're flowing between the two more consistently than we were before. We had this period of 2010 to 2015 where everybody was kind of like, this is the way it should be, or this is the way that it always will be.
It's our reaction to those crises or to those events, the level of our reaction that causes the intensity of the bullwhip at the end.
Exactly, exactly, and that's what's happening right here. This is a bullwhip for the freight industry as tender rejection rates have fallen from about 19% at the beginning of March to 11.46%. A greater drop than we saw almost the entirety of last year in tender rejection.
No, we had several discussions back then watching this trend line going, this is not going to stay here and we're not going to hit what it was pointing towards, which was about a 12 or 14% by the end of the year. And it did straight now. Now we're in a completely different situation.
Exactly. So the market obviously easing right now. Let's look at the demand side real quick of the outbound tender volume index because that's what it has to be. That's what it takes to see a dramatic decrease in those tender rejection rates that quickly. And we're looking at the OTVI. Now it does have total tenders in it, but this right here, this big, huge drop is not totally explained by those drop in rejection rates. This is, you can tell, there is a demand side decline that is occurring as less freight moves into the spot market.
And that's an interesting point that people need to keep in mind is that the level of that drop, you have to look at that in those O-try or the rejections to determine volume changes.
Exactly. We've fallen below the accepted tender level, below last year's, but for a while we were flat.
Sure.
Because we had, so that just means that there was more tenders moving under contract, which is precisely what we're seeing here. And so we've got the O-rail though lined up over the top of it.
This is interesting. I've been watching this widening gap. It's a very interesting situation.
Yeah, so the O-rail here is loaded intermodal container volumes, something that was very subdued through the course of last year, and the green line there, 3% up year over year. So how can demand be all the way down? Well, it's because the sense of urgency is not there.
Urgency in that rate gap widened as well, right?
Huge rate gap now. Even though intermodal took a rate increase, it's still far cheaper, especially when you're talking about fuel surcharges and things like that that get applied to every single piece of, every one of these tenders gets a pretty strong 40, 50 cent per mile fuel surcharge now, and maybe at a low end. But consistent volumes on the intermodal side because the shippers don't have the same sense of urgency, and it's eroding some of that truck volume as well.
Absolutely. Excellent stuff to start off the morning. Chew on that for a little bit, and we'll be back with him a little while later. Right now, I'm going to toss it over to Kaylee Nix. I believe we have Alan Adler.